As a dad, I'm sometimes amazed. Actually, I'm really amazed at what floats kids' boats these days and how imaginative and how creative they can be. Sometimes they get the most fun out of stuff that I just wouldn't even imagine. Stuff that's just laying around and you go, where did that come from and how did you create that? Yet still, we end up buying toys with the most expensive price tags, don't we, parents? Well, Dr Brendon Hyndman, when he was at MRIT University, actually did some research into this sort of stuff and the playtime in primary schools. Now, Dr Hyndman, can you tell us about your study?
Yeah, good afternoon, Ben. So basically what happened was we introduced everyday objects into the schoolyard, and the whole purpose was not to have all these great findings, but really get the students to teach us how they actually direct their own play behaviour. So,
is this because you're a dad and you saw this happening at home, or where did you get the idea for this?
Not quite a dad yet. Their career's taking focus at the moment, but basically what we did, the first week we introduced 5 items, so things such as wooden planks and milk crates, hay bales and that type of thing, and then from there each week for 13 weeks we introduced a range of one to 2 items of everyday household items and those type of things in an entire schoolyard, and the findings were incredible in the engagement, social benefits and a range of other physical activity, enjoyment and quality of life positive effects as well.
What did you find them doing? What were they doing with all these random items?
Yeah, so there's a range of activities that actually, so for instance, all the materials might have been used by the students for things such as an obstacle course, building structures such as your spaceships and boats and sails and those type of things. It was also they'd be seen riding broomsticks around, pretending to be Harry Potter, sweeping their activity stations. Even things such as netting was used for dresses and capes, so they pretend to be movie characters when they're playing around the playground. But even things such as tobogganing was even used. So empty sand shells were used for tobogganing type activities. They were climbing and testing their balance on balancing beams and a range of play behaviours such as those, yeah.
Were they banned from bringing other toys in that they couldn't play with? Were they choosing these over other things to play with?
I think with so many items actually available for the students in the school that they didn't really need to bring anything else. They were more than content using the crates and hay bales to create their structures, and they really used the space. There were so many items introduced that the students were so engaged they didn't really need to use the structured sporting equipment. When we actually introduced play balls, they were using those for chimney type structures rather than actually using them for your ball type games. Yeah.
So what with these results of this study, what have you determined? What's the research shown?
So what we've found, the first year of the study, we found that there was a significant effect from the intervention in the school that we introduced the items on steps and distance. The students actually wore a pedometer belt for the whole year, and that was compared to another school that was matched on the play size, the number of students, the same type of, it was a Catholic co-educational primary school, and what we found was the steps actually increased in comparison to that school with the traditional fixed type playground. The students actually engaged in more vigorous type activity with the movable objects, and we also found some short-term effects in the health-related quality of life for the students that use the movable objects, and their enjoyment of physical activity and lunchtime play activities also increased. So they actually self-reported their enjoyment and quality of life in relation to their everyday life from the intervention.
It's a real eye-opener because I know some PNCs really, they work at getting the monkey bars up and the fixed play gym equipment and look after it, and with good reason too. But to have this movable feast of things that you can create, it's not only exercising mind, but as you've seen, also bodies as well.
Yeah, it's incredible, and the best way to describe this is, I think, if you're going out to a restaurant, you wouldn't order the same thing every day, and there's only so much you can do with a fixed set of equipment. So your monkey bars and slides, you can't move them and mould them into an obstacle course and use them for balancing beams and create the their structures, ships and all those type of things. So it really creates a level of variety in their play behaviour. And what we found, it actually evolved over 2.5 years. So first of all, when we introduced them, the students would use the space to run around and for imaginative type play. And then we went back again, and then we found that the students were creating structures with the items. So they were building and construction a lot more. And then at the 2.5 year mark in the new playground, the school with the new playground, what they were doing, they were creating their structures early in the week and then playing around them. So they'd build this play area, and that would be their station for the week. So then they would engage in a range of activities around them. So it was really fascinating watching all this evolve on this huge big grass field.
I can imagine it would have been. Doctor, I just want to throw it open to our listeners. 13, 13, 32. What was the best game or toy you invented when you were growing up? Did you turn the living room into a cubby, into a fort? Is that a dying art? Do we see kids doing that anymore? I am speaking to Dr Brendon Hyndman. He's a researcher from the University of Western Sydney, but the study that we are talking about, you actually did when you were down at Melbourne at RMIT. RMIT.
Yeah.
What about the reaction from schools? What were they? Were they surprised with your results?
Yeah, well, my wife actually, she was working at a local school as a primary teacher, and she'd come home and she'd be like, "Oh, the teachers have been commenting on this playground that you've been involved with, and have you got any ideas for them?" And the other schools around that western region were really trying to, they were really catching on with this concept. And I know that the school that actually, where we introduced the items, they were actually undertaking seminars for the community and parents. And that was one of the most rewarding things, was that the community, once they saw the level of engagement for the students, they really got behind it. And the parents could see that, parents and teachers could see the level of development in the students' behaviour. So that could be transferred to the home environment, into the classroom. I know a number of the teachers have mentioned how this developmental creativity and problem solving was transferred into the classroom, and they were very significant findings, not only from the teachers but also on the activity levels that we measured over 2.5 years, and even the self-reported quality of life and enjoyment. There were increases compared to the 156 students in the school with the traditional fixed type playground. So really significant findings, and something for the government to really consider. I know in Queensland they're considering the use of greening type projects, and from our research we've found that actually takes quite a long time to implement. It costs a lot of money, and this is...
Doctor, sorry, can I ask you, greening projects? What?
Yeah, so I've just been informed that the Queensland government's introducing trees and garden type features in playgrounds to have a similar type effect and benefit. And some of the studies have shown that they do have a similar type benefit to our program and our playground, but they take a long time to implement, and they are obviously quite costly compared to your everyday objects that you can implement quite immediately and have similar type benefits.
Doctor, it's fascinating stuff, and you sound so passionate about it too. That's what I love. Thank you very much for sharing your research this afternoon on News Talk 4BC.